Georgetown being gentrified in the sense that we understand gentrification today, that happened before the word gentrification was really coined. The first gentrification of what is now Washington, D.C., was pushing out the American Indian tribes, and Georgetown came shortly after that. If you want to kind of compress all of its history into a whole, and you want to talk about Georgetown as the thriving industrial port city, the way Georgetown looks today, walking down the street, is going to look very similar because it's a historic district, but the makeup of the people who live here are going to be very different. Many of the residents in the early 1800s of Georgetown were wealthy, mostly white, Southern plantation-owning families. After the American Civil War, a lot of things changed around the neighborhood. Georgetown started to decline in the sense that it wasn't considered a desirable neighborhood. It is becoming very industrial with the C&O Canal. There was a thriving Black community in Herring Hill. So the makeup, the demographics of Georgetown were starting to change, and a lot of the wealthy families were moving up the hill to the fresher air away from the industry of Georgetown. It was still beautiful. The people who lived here had a sense of pride and community, and they loved their life here, but it was poor. Most people talk about its history of the rich and the famous, but Georgetown was founded by immigrants, and a lot of the immigrant history is focused here on Holy Hill. A lot of Scottish and Irish, but also German immigrants. These are the laborers and the workers who worked in the shops and the grocers. They were the doctors and the lawyers and the canal boatmen. They're really the part of Georgetown that made this a community. Around the time of the New Deal and the two World Wars, folks are moving into the nation's capital to work for the government, and they can't afford the homes in downtown Washington City, but they can afford the fixer-uppers here in Georgetown. With the influx of government workers who tended to be white, they started to not want the laborers, the workers, mostly Black residents living nearby. Around this time, a lot of the only places that these poor Black and immigrant workers could live were in the alleys. What we saw happen all over Washington, D.C., not just in Georgetown, is the Alley Dwelling Act, which essentially kicked the families out, raised the shacks and the buildings, and created parking spots for the larger houses nearby.
We're located on P Street Northwest between 27th Street and 28th Street. And this area is known as Herring Hill. Herring because there were herring fish in Rock Creek Park. It was also where many African Americans settled into a community that was self-contained. They had their mom and pop stores. They had their grocery stores, their beauty parlors. This block had 13, maybe 14 families living here. Most of them owned their property, which in itself during 1890s was remarkable. They had the foresight to own their property, which is going to be crucial. If you own your property, you don't get put out. And believe it or not, the owner, Raleigh Marshall, it was his great-great-grandfather's home, so the history is still alive here.